Isabella Rodriguez Wellington stands in her penthouse foyer, 6 months pregnant and ready for war. Her phone is positioned on a tripod, the red recording light blinking as 100,000 viewers flood into her Instagram livestream. The notification reads, "Live the truth about my marriage." "Hello, everyone," Isabella says, her voice calm but deadly. "Today, I'm going to give you a masterclass in exactly how to catch a cheating husband live and in real time." She walks toward the master bedroom where her billionaire husband Marcus believes he's safe with his mistress, thinking Isabella is at prenatal yoga. What he doesn't know is that his Harvard law-educated wife has been building the perfect case against him for weeks. "Right now," Isabella tells her rapidly growing audience, "my husband is about to learn what happens when you underestimate someone who loves you." She reaches for the bedroom door handle, knowing that what's about to unfold will destroy a marriage, expose financial crimes, and create the most explosive divorce livestream in history. Like and subscribe for more incredible stories of brilliant revenge. The golden hour sunlight filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse, casting long shadows across the pristine marble floors of Manhattan's most exclusive address. 50 stories above the bustling streets of New York, Isabella Rodriguez Wellington stood in her sanctuary, one hand gently caressing her 6-month pregnant belly, while the other held a cup of chamomile tea. At 32, she was the picture of refined elegance, her dark hair cascading in soft waves over her shoulders, her olive skin glowing with the radiance of pregnancy, her intelligent brown eyes surveying the city she once conquered as one of Harvard Law School's most brilliant graduates. This penthouse, worth $15 million, had been her home for 5 years ever since she married Marcus Wellington, the real estate mogul whose empire stretched across 3 continents. The space was a testament to luxury Italian marble imported from Carrara, custom furniture worth more than most people's homes, and art pieces that graced museum walls. Yet today, something felt different. Isabella's lawyer instincts, honed through years of reading people and situations, were tingling with an unease she couldn't quite place. Marcus Wellington was a force of nature, 45 years old, silver at his temples giving him a distinguished look that commanded boardrooms and inspired magazine covers. He had built Wellington Empire from nothing, turning a small construction company inherited from his father into a $3.2 billion real estate dynasty. Tall, broad-shouldered, with piercing blue eyes that could charm investors or intimidate competitors. Marcus was everything Isabella thought she wanted in a husband when they met at a legal conference 7 years ago. Their courtship had been like a fairy tale. Private jets to Paris for weekend getaways, surprise deliveries of rare orchids, dinner reservations at restaurants with year-long waiting lists. Marcus pursued her with the same intensity he applied to closing billion-dollar deals. When he proposed on their yacht off the coast of Santorini, with a ring that cost more than most people's houses, Isabella believed she had found her happily ever after. But fairy tales, as Isabella was about to discover, sometimes had the darkest endings. The marriage had its golden moments the early years when Marcus would cancel important meetings just to take her to art galleries, when he would listen intently as she shared her legal insights, when he made her feel like she was his most valuable acquisition. Isabella had willingly stepped away from her promising legal career, trading her Harvard-educated ambitions for the role of a billionaire's wife. She threw herself into charity work, organized galas that raised millions for various causes, and became the perfect society wife that Marcus's image required. Yet lately, something had shifted. Marcus's late-night business calls had become more frequent. His explanations for weekend investor meetings grew more elaborate. The way he looked at his phone with secretive smiles, the sudden need for privacy during certain conversations, Isabella's trained legal mind began cataloging these changes like evidence in a case she didn't want to build. As she stood in their living room that Friday evening, Isabella reflected on the day's events. She had just returned from her routine prenatal appointment, where Dr. Patel had confirmed everything was progressing beautifully with their first child. The baby was healthy, active, and right on schedule for a winter delivery. Isabella had been excited to share the ultrasound photos with Marcus, to see his eyes light up the way they did whenever they talked about becoming parents. But Marcus wasn't home. Again, his assistant had told her he was in back-to-back meetings with international investors, a phrase that had become as common as his empty promises to make it home for dinner. Isabella had initially planned to surprise him at the office, but something made her change her mind. Instead, she decided to come home early, perhaps prepare his favorite meal, create a romantic atmosphere where they could reconnect over the excitement of their growing family. The penthouse felt eerily quiet as Isabella moved through its rooms. Their home was a masterpiece of modern architecture and design. The living area was an open concept space that flowed seamlessly from the kitchen with its custom Italian cabinetry to the lounge area with its plush Belgian sofas. The dining room featured a table that seated 12, perfect for the dinner parties that had become Isabella's specialty. Every detail had been carefully curated, every piece selected to reflect their status and success. But now, as Isabella walked through these perfectly appointed rooms, she felt like a stranger in her own home. The space that once represented their shared dreams now felt cold, despite its warm color palette and carefully positioned lighting. She paused in front of the massive windows that showcased Manhattan's skyline. Central Park stretched out below them, a green oasis amid the concrete jungle. This view had been one of the things that made her fall in love with the penthouse. From here, she could see the life she had left behind the law offices, where she once worked late into the night, fighting for justice and building a reputation as one of the city's most formidable attorneys. Isabella's reflection was interrupted by the soft chime of the private elevator. Her heart jumped with anticipation. Marcus was home early for once. Perhaps tonight would be different. Perhaps they could recapture some of the magic that had brought them together. But as the elevator doors opened, Isabella's world began to crumble. Marcus stepped out, but he wasn't alone. Beside him was Scarlett Morgan, the 26-year-old Instagram model whose sultry photos had amassed 2 million followers and whose presence at various social events had always made Isabella uncomfortable. Scarlett was everything Isabella wasn't: platinum blonde hair that cascaded in perfect waves, a figure that turned heads wherever she went, and a confidence that bordered on arrogance. She was wearing a dress that cost more than most people's monthly salary, her designer heels clicking against the marble floor with each step. Marcus, Isabella's voice caught in her throat as she processed the scene before her. Marcus looked up, his expression shifting from surprise to something resembling annoyance. Isabella, you're home early. The casualness of his tone, the way he said it as if she were the one intruding, sent a chill down Isabella's spine. But it was Scarlett's reaction that truly shocked her. The younger woman didn't even attempt to look embarrassed or apologetic. Instead, she smiled, a predatory expression that made Isabella's maternal instincts flare. I hope you don't mind, Scarlett said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. Marcus was showing me the penthouse. I've always wondered what it looked like up here. Isabella's legal training kicked in automatically. The way Scarlett said "up here" implied familiarity, as if she had been thinking about this space for some time. The way Marcus avoided eye contact, the subtle intimacy in how they stood close together, these were tells that Isabella had learned to read in countless depositions and courtroom proceedings. Of course, Isabella managed, her voice steadier than she felt. Though I wasn't aware we were having guests tonight. Marcus finally met her eyes, and what Isabella saw there made her blood run cold. There was no warmth, no love, no recognition of the woman who had shared his bed and his dreams for 5 years. Instead, there was calculation, as if he were weighing his options in a business deal. Scarlett and I have some business to discuss, Marcus said, loosening his tie in a gesture Isabella had once found attractive, but now seemed dismissive. We'll be in my study. But Scarlett had other ideas. Actually, she said, running her perfectly manicured fingers along the marble countertop, I was hoping to see more of the penthouse, especially the bedroom. Marcus has told me so much about it. The words hit Isabella like a physical blow. The casualness with which Scarlett mentioned their bedroom, the implication that Marcus had been discussing their private space with this woman, it was a betrayal so profound that Isabella felt the baby stir restlessly in her womb, as if responding to her sudden spike in stress hormones. "I think there's been a misunderstanding," Isabella said, her lawyer voice emerging despite her emotional turmoil. "This is our home, and—" "Our home," Marcus interrupted, his tone turning cold. "Isabella, you need to understand something. Things are changing around here." The way he said it, the finality in his voice, made Isabella's knees weak. She gripped the edge of the kitchen island for support, her engagement ring, that beautiful symbol of their love, catching the light as if mocking her. Scarlett moved closer to Marcus, her body language screaming possession. "Maybe I should go," she said, but her tone suggested she had no intention of leaving. "I wouldn't want to intrude on family time." "You're not intruding," Marcus said quickly. Too quickly. Isabella was just leaving anyway. "Weren't you, darling?" The endearment, spoken with such coldness, was more insulting than any harsh word could have been. Isabella looked between her husband and this woman who was treating her home like a conquest, and something inside her snapped, not into anger, but into a cold, analytical clarity that she hadn't felt since her courtroom days. "Actually," Isabella said, her voice taking on the measured tone she had once used to dismantle opposing counsel's arguments, "I think I'll stay. This is, after all, my home too." The tension in the room became palpable. Marcus's jaw tightened to tell Isabella knew well from 5 years of marriage. Scarlett's smile faltered slightly, perhaps realizing that the woman before her wasn't going to be as easily dismissed as she had anticipated. "Suit yourself," Marcus said finally. "But Scarlett and I have important matters to discuss." As they moved toward the master bedroom, Isabella's sanctuary, the space where she had shared her most intimate moments with the man she thought she knew, Isabella felt a transformation beginning within her. The naive wife who had trusted blindly was being replaced by the sharp-minded attorney who had never lost a case that mattered. She watched them disappear into her bedroom, heard the door close with a finality that felt like the end of one life and the beginning of another. Isabella stood alone in her $15 million prison, one hand on her belly, the other clenched into a fist, and began to plan. Because Marcus Wellington had just made the biggest mistake of his life. He had forgotten who Isabella Rodriguez really was before she became Mrs. Wellington. He had forgotten that beneath the perfect wife and society lady lived one of Harvard Law School's most brilliant graduates. A woman who had built her career on destroying men who thought they were untouchable. And now, carrying his child and standing in the ruins of their marriage, Isabella was about to remind him exactly who he had chosen to betray. The sound of laughter from behind the bedroom door, Scarlett's high-pitched giggle followed by Marcus's low chuckle, cut through Isabella like a knife. But instead of breaking her, it forged her into something harder, something more dangerous. Marcus wanted to play games. Isabella was about to show him what happened when you played games with someone who knew all the rules. The first night was the longest of Isabella's life. She sat in the guest room, a space that had once been designated for visiting family, but now felt like exile in her own home, listening to sounds that would haunt her dreams for months to come. The muffled voices, the intimate laughter, the creak of floorboards in a rhythm that spoke of betrayal so profound it made her physically ill. Isabella pressed her hands to her ears, but nothing could block out the reality of what was happening just down the hall. At 2 a.m., she heard the shower running, their master bathroom shower, the one with Italian marble tiles she had personally selected, the rainfall shower head they had christened together as newlyweds. The domesticity of it, the casualness with which this woman was making herself at home, was perhaps more devastating than the physical betrayal itself. When morning came, Isabella forced herself to face the music. She dressed carefully in a navy blue wrap dress that accommodated her growing belly while maintaining an air of dignity. Her makeup was flawless, her hair perfectly styled. If she was going to confront the destruction of her marriage, she would do it looking like the sophisticated woman she had trained herself to become. The kitchen scene that greeted her was surreal in its domesticity. Marcus stood at the espresso machine, their wedding gift from his business partner, wearing only his silk pajama bottoms, his gray hair tousled with sleep. At the kitchen island sat Scarlett, wearing Isabella's favorite silk robe, the Hermes piece Marcus had brought her from Paris for their second anniversary. She was eating from Isabella's wedding china, using Isabella's monogrammed silver, looking for all the world like she belonged there. "Good morning, darling," Marcus said without looking up from the coffee preparation. The casual cruelty of the greeting, delivered as if this were any normal morning, made Isabella's breath catch. Scarlett looked up from her breakfast and smiled, not apologetic, not embarrassed, but victorious. "Oh, Isabella, I hope you don't mind, but I borrowed this robe. It's absolutely gorgeous. Where did you get it?" The question was designed to wound, and it succeeded. Every word was calculated to establish ownership, to make it clear that Isabella was now the outsider in her own home. Isabella's legal training helped her recognize the psychological warfare for what it was, but knowing it was a strategy didn't make it hurt less. "It was a gift," Isabella replied evenly, pouring herself a glass of water since caffeine was off limits during pregnancy. "Marcus has such excellent taste," Scarlett continued, running her fingers along the silk lapel of the robe. "In everything." The implication was clear, and Marcus's silence was deafening. Isabella waited for him to say something, anything, to defend their marriage or at least acknowledge the awkwardness of the situation. Instead, he handed Scarlett a cup of coffee, prepared exactly the way Isabella liked hers. 2 sugars, a splash of cream, served in the delicate Limoges cup that had been Isabella's grandmother's. "I thought you had meetings today," Isabella said, addressing Marcus directly. "I do," he replied, finally meeting her eyes. "But Scarlett will be staying here while I'm gone. She's between apartments right now." The lie was so casual, so effortlessly delivered, that Isabella almost admired its audacity. Scarlett Morgan lived in a luxury condo in Soho. Isabella had seen the Instagram posts, the carefully staged photos of morning routines and sunset yoga sessions on the private balcony. There was no apartment hunting, no temporary displacement. This was conquest, pure and simple. "How convenient," Isabella managed. "Isabella," Marcus said, his tone shifting to the one he used in board meetings when someone was taking up too much of his time. "I think we need to discuss some changes around here." The phrase sent ice through Isabella's veins. In her legal career, she had heard variations of it countless times, usually from men who were about to explain why their wives deserved nothing in divorce proceedings, why their indiscretions were somehow justifiable, why they were the real victims in situations they had created. "What kind of changes?" Isabella asked, though part of her already knew. Marcus exchanged a look with Scarlett, intimate, conspiratorial, before answering. "I think it would be best if you moved to the East Hampton house for a while. The city air isn't good for the baby anyway." The East Hampton house was beautiful but isolated, an hour and a half from the city and all of Isabella's support systems. More importantly, it would put her far away from Marcus's business affairs, his social circle, and any witnesses to what was clearly a calculated campaign to erase her from his life. "I see," Isabella said softly. "And how long is a while?" "We'll see," Marcus replied with a shrug that dismissed 5 years of marriage, an unborn child, and a life built together. It was Scarlett who delivered the killing blow. "Don't worry," she said, reaching across to squeeze Marcus's hand. "I'll take good care of everything while you're gone." Everything, not someone, everything, including Isabella's husband, her home, her life. That afternoon, while Marcus was supposedly in meetings and Scarlett was enjoying a spa day at Isabella's usual salon using Isabella's account. Naturally, Isabella sat in the guest room and began to remember who she used to be. Before Marcus, before the charity galas and society pages, before she traded her courtroom victories for domestic tranquility, Isabella Rodriguez had been a force to be reckoned with. She had graduated summa cum laude from Harvard Law, specialized in high-stakes divorce litigation, and built a reputation for dismantling the assets and alibis of unfaithful, wealthy men with surgical precision. She had been particularly good at cases involving financial infidelity men who hid assets, transferred property to mistresses, or attempted to claim poverty while maintaining expensive affairs. Isabella had developed an instinct for following paper trails, identifying hidden accounts, and building cases that left cheating husbands with nothing but their legal bills and regret. The irony wasn't lost on her now. Isabella pulled out her laptop, the one Marcus had given her for personal use, not knowing that she had maintained her legal research subscriptions and kept her analytical skills sharp through pro bono work. She began with simple searches: Marcus's recent social media activity, Scarlett's public posts, any photographs or check-ins that might indicate how long this affair had been going on. What she found made her blood run cold. The evidence was everywhere, hidden in plain sight for anyone who knew how to look. Scarlett had been posting photos from restaurants where Isabella and Marcus had supposedly enjoyed date nights. The timing stamps showed Marcus was with Scarlett while texting Isabella that he was in late business meetings, hotel check-ins, vacation posts, shopping sprees, a pattern of deception that stretched back nearly a year. But it was the financial records that told the real story. Using passwords Marcus thought she didn't know, the same ones he used for everything: their wedding date, followed by his lucky number. Isabella accessed their joint accounts and discovered a systematic transfer of assets that had been going on for months. Money moved to offshore accounts, property titles transferred to shell companies, investments liquidated and reinvested in ways that would make them difficult to trace in divorce proceedings. Marcus wasn't just cheating. He was strategically dismantling their financial life together, preparing to leave Isabella with as little as possible when he finally pulled the trigger on their marriage. The most damning discovery came when Isabella accessed Marcus's computer through their shared home network. Buried in his email was a folder labeled Legal Contingencies, correspondence with divorce attorneys, asset protection specialists, and private investigators hired to build a case against Isabella's fitness as a mother. The investigators' reports were particularly cruel. They detailed Isabella's daily routines, her emotional state, her erratic behavior during pregnancy, which consisted of crying after phone calls with Marcus and occasionally talking to herself while working in the garden. The conclusion was clear: Marcus's legal team was building a case to claim Isabella was mentally unstable, unfit to have custody of their child. But the final blow came in an email exchange between Marcus and his lead attorney. "The pregnancy is inconvenient, but it can work in our favor. Document everything that can be construed as irrational behavior. The hormones give us a good foundation for instability claims. If we play this right, we can minimize spousal support and gain full custody. The kid will be better off anyway. Isabella's too emotional to raise a Wellington heir properly." Isabella read the words 3 times before their full meaning sank in. Marcus wasn't just planning to leave her. He was planning to take their child and destroy her reputation in the process. The man she had loved, the father of her unborn baby, was preparing to paint her as an unfit mother to a judge who would never know the truth about who she really was. That night, Isabella made a phone call she hadn't made in 5 years. "James Chen speaking." "James, it's Isabella Rodriguez." The pause on the other end spoke volumes. James Chen had been her closest colleague at Harvard, her study partner. And if she was being honest, the man she had been falling in love with before Marcus swept her off her feet with his wealth and charm. James had built his own practice specializing in complex divorce litigation, and his reputation for protecting betrayed spouses was legendary. "Isabella," James's voice was warm but cautious. I wasn't sure I'd ever hear from you again. I need help, James, and I think you might be the only person who can give it to me." 2 days later, Isabella sat in a small cafe in Brooklyn, far from the Upper East Side social circles where she might be recognized. James looked exactly the same: intelligent brown eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, the same thoughtful expression that had made her feel understood during their law school debates. But there was something different about him now, a confidence that came from years of victories in courtrooms across the city. Tell me everything, James said simply. Isabella did. She laid out the financial transfers, the hidden emails, the systematic plan to destroy her life and take her child. James listened without interruption, occasionally making notes in a legal pad that never left his side. When she finished, James was quiet for a long moment. Isabella, he said finally, I've seen a lot of bad husbands in my career, but this is sociopathic. He's not just leaving you, he's trying to erase you. I know, Isabella replied. The question is, can we stop him? James smiled the same brilliant smile that had once made her heart skip beats in constitutional law class. Isabella, you taught me half of what I know about building divorce cases. The question isn't whether we can stop him. The question is, how badly do you want to destroy him? For the first time in weeks, Isabella felt something resembling hope. I want him to lose everything, she said quietly. I want him to understand that when you betray someone who loves you, when you try to take their child, when you think you're untouchable, there are consequences. James nodded slowly. Then we're going to need a better plan than just filing divorce papers. Marcus has resources, connections, and a head start. But he's also made one critical mistake. What's that? He forgot who you are. He's been seeing you as just a wife for so long that he's forgotten you're one of the smartest legal minds of our generation. We're going to use that against him. Over the next hour, James outlined a strategy that was as brilliant as it was devastating. They wouldn't just collect evidence, they would document everything, build a case so airtight that Marcus's team wouldn't be able to poke holes in it. More importantly, they would time their attack perfectly, catching Marcus at his most vulnerable moment. There's one more thing, Isabella said as they prepared to leave. I want this to be public. I want the world to see who Marcus Wellington really is. James raised an eyebrow. That's dangerous. Isabella, once you go public, there's no taking it back. Good, Isabella replied, her hand moving protectively to her belly. I want him to face the same humiliation he's planning for me. I want his reputation destroyed the way he's trying to destroy mine. In that case, James said with a grin that reminded Isabella why she had once been half in love with him, I think I know exactly how to give Marcus Wellington the show of his life. As Isabella walked back to her car, she felt the baby kick strong, insistent movements that felt like approval. She was no longer the naive wife who had been blindsided by betrayal. She was Isabella Rodriguez again, Harvard law graduate, and she was about to remind the world and Marcus Wellington exactly what happened when you underestimated a woman with nothing left to lose. Monday, 3:00 p.m. The moment Isabella had been preparing for had finally arrived. She stood in the marble foyer of the penthouse, wearing a black power suit that she hadn't touched in 5 years, the same one she had worn when closing her most challenging case as a divorce attorney. The tailoring was still perfect, adjusted to accommodate her 6-month pregnancy, and she felt every inch the formidable lawyer she had once been. Her hair was pulled back in a severe chignon, her makeup was camera-ready, and her wedding ring, that symbol of broken promises, caught the afternoon light streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Isabella's phone was positioned on a tripod, the live stream software ready to broadcast to her 500,000 Instagram followers, a following she had built during her legal career, but had neglected during her marriage. The notification had already gone out, "Live the truth about my marriage." Within minutes, viewers were flooding in, drawn by curiosity about the famously private billionaire's wife. The comments were already streaming in. Isabella, we've missed you. What's happening? Are you okay? You look beautiful as always. Is this about Marcus? Isabella took a deep breath, one hand resting on her belly where their child was stirring restlessly, as if sensing the magnitude of what was about to unfold. Hello, everyone, Isabella said, her voice calm and professional despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. Thank you for joining me today. I know many of you have been wondering why I've been absent from social media, why I've been quiet about my personal life lately. Today, I'm going to show you exactly why. The viewer count was climbing rapidly: 1,000, 5,000, 10,000. My name is Isabella Rodriguez Wellington, she continued, using her full legal name for the first time in years. For those who don't know, I'm a Harvard Law graduate who specialized in high-stakes divorce litigation before I married billionaire Marcus Wellington 5 years ago. Today, I'm going to give you a masterclass in exactly how to catch a cheating husband live and in real time. The comments exploded. Wait, what? Is Marcus cheating? This is about to be insane. Get him, girl. Isabella checked her watch. 3:02 p.m. According to the schedule she had memorized from Marcus's calendar, he was supposed to be in a board meeting with international investors until 4:30. According to the private investigator James had hired, Marcus and Scarlett had been meeting at the penthouse every Monday at 3:00 p.m. for the past month, using the time when Isabella was supposedly at her prenatal yoga class. Right now, Isabella said, walking toward the bedroom wing of the penthouse. My husband believes I'm at yoga. He believes he's safe to continue an affair that has been going on for nearly a year. He believes he can systematically destroy our marriage, plan to take our unborn child, and leave me with nothing. The viewer count hit 25,000. But here's what Marcus forgot, Isabella continued, her voice taking on the commanding tone she had once used in courtrooms. He forgot that I'm not just his pregnant wife. I'm a lawyer who has never lost a case that mattered. And today, Marcus Wellington is about to become my most important victory. Isabella paused outside the master bedroom door. She could hear voices inside Marcus's low chuckle and Scarlett's breathy laugh. Her hand trembled slightly as she reached for the door handle, but her voice remained steady. What you're about to see, Isabella told her audience, is the truth about one of America's most celebrated billionaires. The truth about how he treats the woman carrying his child. The truth about the kind of man who steals from his own wife to support his mistress. She turned the handle and pushed open the door. The scene that greeted her was exactly what she had expected, but seeing it broadcast live to thousands of viewers made it feel surreal. Marcus and Scarlett were on the bed, Isabella's bed, with the custom Italian linens she had chosen, surrounded by the furniture she had carefully selected. Scarlett was wearing the diamond necklace Marcus had given Isabella for their first anniversary. Marcus was wearing nothing but his arrogance. Both froze when they saw Isabella standing in the doorway, phone in hand, red recording light blinking. Ladies and gentlemen, Isabella said calmly, I'd like you to meet my husband, Marcus Wellington, CEO of Wellington Empire, and his mistress, Scarlett Morgan. The reaction was immediate and explosive. Marcus lunged for his robe, his face cycling through shock, rage, and panic. Scarlett screamed, grabbing for the sheet to cover herself, her perfectly styled hair suddenly looking disheveled and cheap. Isabella, what the hell? Marcus started. Turn that fucking thing off, Scarlett shrieked. But Isabella was just getting started. The viewer count had hit 50,000 and climbing. Don't worry about being embarrassed, Isabella told them, her voice dripping with false sympathy. After all, Marcus, you've been planning to humiliate me in divorce court, haven't you? You've been building a case to claim I'm mentally unstable, unfit to be a mother. Turnabout seems fair. Marcus's face went white. Isabella, you don't understand. Oh, but I do understand, Isabella interrupted, pulling out her phone with her free hand. I understand everything. For example, I understand that you've transferred $2.3 million to offshore accounts in the past 6 months. I understand that you've been paying for Scarlett's lifestyle, her apartment, her cars, her designer clothes with money from our joint accounts. The comments were going crazy. Drag him, Isabella. This is better than any reality show. He's going to jail. That necklace is gorgeous. Wait, it's yours. I also understand, Isabella continued, that you hired a private investigator to document my erratic behavior during pregnancy. Apparently, crying when my husband lies to me makes me an unfit mother. Scarlett, who had managed to wrap herself in a sheet, tried to slip past Isabella toward the door. But Isabella was ready for her. And Scarlett, Isabella said, turning the camera toward the younger woman, I understand that you've been telling people Marcus is going to leave me for you, that you've been planning your future in my home, with my husband, Using my money. This is harassment, Scarlett screamed. You can't record us without consent. Isabella smiled the cold, predatory smile she had once used to demolish opposing counsel. Actually, Scarlett, this is my home. In New York, I have every right to record what happens in my own bedroom, especially when my husband is committing adultery with someone who's wearing my jewelry. The viewer count hit 75,000. News outlets were already picking up the story. Isabella could see the notifications flooding her phone as reporters shared the live stream. Marcus, who had managed to get his robe on, tried a different approach. Isabella, please, let's discuss this privately. Think about the baby. Oh, I am thinking about the baby, Isabella said, her voice rising for the first time. I'm thinking about how you plan to take our child away from me. I'm thinking about the emails you sent to your lawyer, discussing how to use my pregnancy hormones against me in court. She pulled out a tablet and began reading directly from the screen. The pregnancy is inconvenient, but it can work in our favor. Document everything that can be construed as irrational behavior. The hormones give us a good foundation for instability claims. Marcus's face crumpled. The viewing audience was witnessing a billionaire's complete destruction in real time. Those were taken out of context. He started. Were they? Isabella interrupted. What about this one? If we play this right, we can minimize spousal support and gain full custody. The kid will be better off anyway. Isabella's too emotional to raise a Wellington heir properly. The comments were a flood of outrage and support. What a monster. Isabella, we're all behind you. Save this video as evidence. How could he say that about his own child? But Isabella wasn't finished. She had spent weeks preparing for this moment, and she was going to make every second count. And then there are the financial crimes, Isabella continued, addressing the camera directly. Because Marcus hasn't just been stealing my money to fund his affair. He's been evading taxes, hiding assets from the IRS, and using shell companies to move money internationally. She held up a USB drive. This contains copies of every transaction, every hidden account, every illegal transfer Marcus has made in the past 3 years. I've already sent copies to the FBI, the IRS, and the New York Attorney General's office. Marcus lunged toward her, but Isabella stepped back smoothly. I wouldn't. Marcus, we have 100,000 viewers now. An assault on a pregnant woman would really complete your destruction. Indeed, the viewer count had exploded. The divorce trap was trending on Twitter. News channels were cutting to breaking news segments. Isabella's live stream was being shared across every social media platform. Scarlett tried one last desperate play. Marcus, tell her you love me. Tell her you're leaving her anyway. But Marcus was broken. The fight had gone out of him as he realized the magnitude of what was happening. His empire, built over decades, was crumbling in real time. His phone was buzzing constantly, board members, investors, lawyers, all demanding answers to questions he couldn't answer without incriminating himself further. The best part, Isabella said, turning back to the camera, is that I don't even need to file for divorce. Marcus has done all the work for me. Adultery, financial abuse, planning to kidnap our child, I'd say that's grounds enough. Wouldn't you? The live stream was approaching 150,000 viewers. Isabella could see news vans pulling up outside the building. The story was going global. This is what happens, Isabella said, her voice calm and final. When you underestimate someone who loves you, when you think you can betray, steal from, and destroy someone who trusted you completely, when you forget that the woman carrying your child is not your victim, she's your equal, and she's smarter than you ever gave her credit for. Marcus collapsed onto the edge of the bed, his head in his hands. 20 minutes ago, he had been a billionaire conducting a secret affair. Now he was a global pariah facing criminal charges, financial ruin, and social destruction. Scarlett, realizing that her meal ticket had just evaporated, tried to salvage something from the wreckage. Isabella, I'm sorry. I didn't know Marcus told me you two were already separated. Save it. Isabella said coldly. I have screenshots of your Instagram posts laughing about stealing someone's husband. I have recordings of you planning our divorce settlement like it was a shopping spree. You knew exactly what you were doing. The viewer count hit 200,000. The comments were unanimous in their support for Isabella and their condemnation of Marcus and Scarlett. Isabella looked directly into the camera for her closing statement. My name is Isabella Rodriguez Wellington. I'm 6 months pregnant. I'm about to be very, very rich, and I just destroyed a billionaire live on social media. To every woman watching this, you are not powerless. You are not crazy. You are not alone. And when someone tries to erase you, remember that you have the power to erase them right back. She ended the live stream with 250,000 viewers and notifications that it had been shared over 1 million times. As Isabella walked out of the bedroom, leaving Marcus and Scarlett to contemplate the ruins of their lives, she felt her baby kick strongly as if applauding. The war was over. Isabella had won. 6 months later, Isabella Rodriguez sat in the corner office of Wellington Justice Law Firm, the legal practice she had built from the ashes of her marriage. The view from the 40th floor of the Manhattan high-rise was spectacular. Central Park stretched out below. The same view she had once enjoyed from Marcus's penthouse, but now it belonged to her alone. The live stream that had destroyed Marcus Wellington's empire had been viewed over 50 million times across all platforms. The hashtag #ChurDivorceTrap had become synonymous with women fighting back against unfaithful, abusive husbands. Isabella's story had been featured on every major news network, spawned a Netflix documentary, and inspired a movement of women sharing their own stories of betrayal and recovery. But more importantly, it had delivered justice. The legal aftermath had been swift and brutal for Marcus. The financial evidence Isabella had uncovered led to a federal investigation that revealed years of tax evasion, money laundering, and fraud. Wellington Empire collapsed within 2 months as investors fled and the IRS froze assets. Marcus was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison for tax evasion and financial fraud. His personal assets, including the penthouse, were seized and sold to pay back taxes and penalties. Isabella, meanwhile, had emerged from the divorce proceedings as one of the wealthiest women in New York. The prenuptial agreement Marcus had insisted upon was voided due to his criminal activities and adultery. Isabella received not only her fair share of the marital assets, but also punitive damages for emotional distress and financial abuse. The total settlement, $1.6 billion, but money, Isabella had discovered, was just the beginning of her victory. The door to her office opened, and her assistant announced her 3 o'clock appointment. Isabella looked up from the legal brief she was reviewing to see Sarah Martinez, a young woman with haunted eyes and a fresh bruise on her wrist, partially hidden by her sleeve. Mrs. Rodriguez, Sarah said nervously, thank you for seeing me. Isabella had legally returned to her maiden name after the divorce, finding power and identity in reclaiming the name she had earned through her own achievements. Please call me Isabella and have a seat. Tell me how I can help you. Sarah's story was heartbreakingly familiar. A wealthy husband who had become increasingly controlling and abusive. Hidden assets, secret accounts, and a systematic campaign to isolate her from friends and family. Threats to take their children if she tried to leave. The same pattern Isabella had seen dozens of times in the 6 months since opening her practice. I saw your live stream, Sarah said quietly. When you exposed Marcus Wellington, it gave me hope that maybe I could fight back too. This was why Isabella had built Wellington Justice Law Firm. Not for revenge that had already been served, but to help other women who found themselves in the position she had once been in. The firm specialized in high-stakes divorce cases involving abuse, financial manipulation, and child custody battles. Isabella's team of 12 attorneys had a 100% success rate in securing favorable outcomes for their clients. Sarah, Isabella said gently, what happened to you was not your fault. What your husband is doing is illegal, and we're going to stop him. But I need you to understand something once we start this process. There's no going back. We're going to expose everything, fight for everything you deserve, and make sure he can never hurt you or your children again. Are you ready for that fight? Sarah nodded, tears in her eyes. I'm ready. As Isabella began outlining their strategy, she felt the familiar satisfaction that came from using her skills to protect someone who couldn't protect herself. This was what she had been meant to do, not just decorate penthouses and attend charity galas, but fight for justice in the most personal way possible. After Sarah left, Isabella had a few minutes to herself before her next appointment. She used the time to check on her most precious victory, her daughter Emma. Now 6 months old and napping in the adjoining nursery that Isabella had built into her office. Emma was perfect. Marcus's blue eyes but Isabella's dark hair, a personality that was already showing signs of the same fierce intelligence that had saved them both. Isabella had given birth to Emma 2 weeks after Marcus's sentencing, in a private hospital room surrounded by the friends she had reconnected with after years of isolation. James Chen had been there, holding her hand through the worst of the labor, and he had been there every day since. Their relationship had developed slowly, carefully, two people who understood the value of trust and the fragility of love. James had proposed 3 months ago, not with a ring worth more than most people's houses, but with a simple platinum band and a promise to be her partner in every sense of the word. Their wedding was planned for the following spring, a small ceremony with people who genuinely loved them. Not a society spectacle designed to impress. As Isabella watched Emma sleep, she reflected on how completely her life had changed. The naive woman who had trusted blindly had been replaced by someone stronger, wiser, and infinitely more powerful. She owned her own firm, her own building, her own destiny. She was raising her daughter to be fearless, independent, and uncompromising in her standards for how she deserved to be treated. The money from the divorce settlement had been transformative, but not in the way Isabella had initially expected. Yes, she lived comfortably. The penthouse apartment she had purchased was beautiful, though smaller and more personal than the monument to wealth she had shared with Marcus. But most of the settlement had gone toward building something lasting: the law firm, a foundation that provided legal aid to abused women, and a scholarship fund for young women pursuing legal careers. Isabella's phone buzzed with a notification. Her assistant had sent her the latest social media analytics for the firm. Wellington Justice had 3.2 million followers across all platforms, making it one of the most visible legal practices in the country. Isabella's weekly live streams, where she discussed legal rights, shared success stories with client permission, and provided guidance to women in difficult situations, regularly drew over 100,000 viewers. The streams had become a phenomenon in their own right. Women from around the world shared their stories, asked for advice, and supported each other through the comments. Isabella had created more than a law firm. She had built a community of women who refused to be victims. One of Isabella's favorite success stories involved a client named Jennifer, whose husband had hidden millions in cryptocurrency while claiming poverty in their divorce proceedings. Using techniques Isabella had pioneered in her own case, they had traced every transaction and recovered assets the husband's own lawyers didn't know existed. Jennifer's settlement had been enough to support her and her 3 children for life, while her husband faced criminal charges for perjury and financial fraud. Another client, Maria, had been systematically poisoned by her wealthy husband, who was slowly killing her to inherit her family's fortune. Isabella's team had worked with federal investigators to expose the attempted murder, saving Maria's life and sending her husband to prison for attempted homicide. The stories kept coming, and Isabella kept fighting. Each victory felt personal, as if she were saving the woman she used to be over and over again. A soft knock on her door interrupted her thoughts. James entered, carrying 2 cups of coffee and wearing the smile that still made her heart skip beats after all these years. "How was your day?" he asked, settling into the chair across from her desk. "Productive," Isabella replied, accepting the coffee gratefully. 3 new clients, all with the same story: successful men who think their wives are possessions to be discarded when they become inconvenient. "And all about to learn that they picked the wrong lawyer to oppose," James said with a grin. Their partnership extended beyond their personal relationship. James had joined Wellington Justice as a senior partner, bringing his own expertise in financial crimes and asset recovery. Together, they had built what many considered the most formidable divorce litigation practice in the country. "Any word from our favorite federal prisoner?" James asked. Isabella checked her latest correspondence. Marcus sent her letters from prison every few months, rambling apologies, desperate pleas for forgiveness, and increasingly unhinged attempts to blame everyone but himself for his downfall. Isabella read them for legal purposes in case he made threats, but never responded. "Just the usual," Isabella said. "He's discovered religion, apparently. Thinks God will forgive him even if I won't." "And Scarlett," Isabella smiled grimly. Scarlett Morgan's fall had been almost as dramatic as Marcus's. Abandoned by Marcus when his empire collapsed, she had been unable to maintain her lifestyle or social status. Her Instagram following had evaporated overnight as brands distanced themselves from the scandal. She had eventually moved back to her hometown in Texas, where she worked at a department store and lived with her parents. The last Isabella had heard, Scarlett was engaged to a local mechanic and had deleted all her social media accounts. In a strange way, Isabella hoped she found happiness. Everyone deserved a chance at redemption, even if they had to earn it through genuine change and hard work. "She's out of the picture," Isabella replied, "living a very different life now." As the afternoon sun streamed through her office windows, Isabella felt a deep sense of satisfaction. Not because she had destroyed Marcus, though justice had certainly been served, but because she had reclaimed herself. The woman who had been betrayed and nearly broken had risen from the ashes to become something more powerful than she had ever imagined possible. Emma stirred in her crib, making the soft sounds that meant she was waking up. Isabella moved to the nursery, lifting her daughter into her arms and marveling, as she did every day, at the miracle of this little person who represented not just love, but survival and strength. "Hello, beautiful girl," Isabella whispered. "Did you have a good nap?" Emma's response was a gurgle and a smile that lit up the room. Isabella carried her back to the office, where James was reviewing case files for their upcoming trials. "You know," James said, looking up at Isabella holding Emma, "I never thought I'd say this, but I'm grateful to Marcus Wellington." Isabella raised an eyebrow. "That's a surprising admission. If he hadn't been such a complete bastard," James explained, "you might never have remembered how brilliant you are. The world might never have gotten to see Isabella Rodriguez in action, and I might never have had a second chance with the woman I was too much of a coward to fight for the first time around." Isabella considered this. It was true that her suffering had led to unexpected blessings. Her pain had forged her into someone stronger. Her betrayal had taught her to value herself. Her near destruction had shown her what she was truly capable of achieving. "I suppose every villain serves a purpose," Isabella mused. "Marcus taught me that I can survive anything. He taught me that I'm stronger than I knew. And he taught me that justice, while sometimes delayed, is always possible if you're willing to fight for it." As the day wound down, Isabella prepared for her evening routine. She would take Emma home to their apartment, where they would have dinner with James and spend the evening as a family. Later, after Emma was asleep, Isabella would review cases for the next day and prepare for her weekly live stream. This week's stream would feature an interview with a judge who specialized in domestic violence cases, followed by a Q&A session where Isabella would answer legal questions from viewers. The format had become incredibly popular, with women tuning in from around the world to get advice from someone who had not only survived betrayal, but had turned it into victory. Before leaving the office, Isabella made one final stop at the wall where she displayed photos from her cases, not client photos, which were confidential, but images from courtrooms where justice had been served. Press photos of handcuffed executives being led away in handcuffs, headlines announcing favorable settlements, screenshots of social media posts from clients celebrating their freedom. But the centerpiece of the wall was a framed screenshot from her famous livestream. The image showed Isabella standing in her bedroom doorway, phone in hand, broadcasting the truth to the world while Marcus and Scarlett cowered behind her. The timestamp showed the exact moment when everything changed when a betrayed wife became a force for justice. Below the image was a plaque with the inscription that had become the motto of Wellington Justice Law Firm. When they think you're powerless, remind them who you really are. As Isabella gathered her things and prepared to go home to her daughter and the man who loved them both, she reflected on the journey that had brought her here. The pain had been real, the betrayal devastating, the fear overwhelming. But from that destruction had risen something beautiful, a life lived on her own terms, a career dedicated to justice, and a future full of possibilities. Marcus Wellington had tried to erase her. Instead, he had given birth to someone unstoppable. And every day, Isabella Rodriguez woke up grateful for that transformation, ready to fight another battle, save another woman, and prove once again that love, justice, and courage could triumph over betrayal, greed, and cruelty. The war was over, but the mission to ensure that no woman ever had to face what Isabella had faced without support, resources, and hope would continue for the rest of her life, and Isabella wouldn't have it any other way.